Hi there, Celine here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. It's been quite a while, I know, since I've made a video. If you're someone who has been following any of my content, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this video. And I also want to talk about a topic, or maybe related topics, really about living in a way that is true to you, about creating your life. And it feels a good time of year now as well, you know, the end of a year. And it's often a time, isn't it? It can be a time that can be emotionally challenging, overwhelming. For some, it can be exciting and reflective. For others, it can be all of those things at once. I know, speaking from experience. But definitely there's layers and levels to everything, isn't there? There's no just one black and white. That's how I feel anyway. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about this whole process of living truthfully and authentically as yourself, a little bit about how we can go about doing that, and that how that feeds into creating our life. We have the power, we really do, to create and shape our reality and our experience of it, and in doing that, influence those around us in a positive way, and influence the world in a positive way, and interact in a positive way. I have a couple of notes in case I do forget what came to me, because it came so strongly. I woke up this morning and just it's exactly what happened when I made my very first video. So today, as I said, I'm going to interweave a little bit of my own experience over the last probably 6 months, because I think it's almost then since I made my last video. I might have made one, and I've written in my newsletter. But basically, to start, as I said, my experience, or my desire in making content, is really about sharing my experience of my own growth, evolution, creating my life, how I deal with obstacles, healing, growth, all of what really started to make itself known to me after my experience with breast cancer in 2016. And I've written 2 books since then, and I'll mention them just at the end as well. So I launched the second book, Gifts from the Devastation, which is really about how that whole experience of cancer totally transformed me and my relationship with life, my understanding of life, and really, you know, at a higher level, I suppose, than as opposed to how I had been living, which was very much in this 3D physical reality. There is nothing else, even though I always knew there was. But that sort of burnout and frustration and emptiness from living in a particular way. So it has, and it's still in progress, as my life is, have really woken up so much in me, and so much excitement and passion and challenge and healing and growth and discomfort, all of it. That book really is telling that story, you know, the starting process of the healing, the waking up to who I am, and the starting of creating and understanding how to create my reality. And I'm going to delve into that further next year. So I launched that in March, and then I felt, okay, I have to, which I did, go on and promote it. And I did a lot of work on that. But still, I felt at some point, I kept going back to it, and I kept feeling, okay, you're not doing enough, and maybe I need to start straight into writing something else. And while that was going on in me, this sort of, and I could feel it, it was coming from a place, I think, of fear. Now, if I say that, I mean, a lot of it wasn't, but then at the same time, there were personal things going on in my life. I have mentioned it. My mother became unwell. She's doing good now, but it changed. There's more of a dependence on me. I was very, and am very glad to be able to support her and have that space and time, and it's a great gift, and spend all that time with her. But there was a number of things, I'm not going to go into them all, but basically, so a lot of my priorities shifted, and I started to feel quite resentful, is the only way. I mentioned it in a newsletter, and I think I struggled with that for quite a few months. And I feel I'm coming out of that now and have been coming out of it. And that's why what I've learned and what has shifted, and I feel in a flow again, I want to talk about. So really, I'm talking about here, as I said, following your truth, creating your life, following the breadcrumb trail. I talk about that in my book as well. The very first thing, I suppose, I would say is the key to all of this is really following your excitement, your intuition, your passions, your interest, your curiosity. That is how, our true voice, whatever you call that. For me, it's source, God, spirit, my soul, my higher self, whatever words, the universe. But if you accept that you are more than just this physical body, which you probably do if you're listening or watching me, that you are so much more than that, and that voice is the guiding voice in our lives. That is the voice that knows why we are here, what our next steps are, knows the sort of blueprint we've laid out for ourselves. So I love, and I love that idea of following your excitement and your passion, because that is how, I suppose, that energy or that consciousness that speaks to us physically, because we're in a body. And that's what I've been doing a lot since I had cancer, not all the time, but I really have been. And it propels you forward when you start to follow that. So that would be my first bit of advice is, and I would preface that by saying, if you're feeling, and if you're in a state of overwhelm, which I've been a lot, anxiety, fear, anything like that, not to sort of put pressure on yourself to, oh my God, I have to hear this voice. What is my excitement? What is my passion? Really, the job there then is just to look after yourself, bring yourself back into alignment, into balance. And maybe you just need time to stop, to recharge, to get out in nature, to slow down, because that voice will find its way through all of that noise of the fear and the anxiety when the time is right. But your system and everything, I have found personally, needs to be in quite a neutral space, and also energized, that you're ready to act. So I'm taking that as the starting point, that you're what would I say, in that sort of aligned state, or at least aware that it's important to be in that aligned state. And if not, that's fine, because it's a rhythm and it's a journey. So that would be the first thing I would mention. The second point is to act on it, maybe to read more about it. It may be to talk to someone. It may be to go somewhere. It may be to do a course. It may be whatever it happens to be. It could be to sit down and write a piece of music. It could be to make a phone call. It doesn't have to be huge, but for the universe or that aspect of ourselves to work with us, we have free will. We have to interact and dialogue with it and follow, as I say, the breadcrumb trail. That's what I believe is so key. Rather than jumping forward, just follow the next step in front of you, but you must interact, and then you're shown the next step. So that's the second point, to take some action. The third would be synchronicity then starts to show up. So the more, and it takes time, I go through waves of really synchronicitous, that's all right, synchronistic periods where there's such a flow, and I'm in this momentum of listening and acting, and then something else shows up, and I can say from experience, it absolutely is the case. This isn't just from reading, this is from living it. And I'm going to share something in a moment about that. But yeah, so the synchronicity can then start to show up, and it'll start to become stronger and faster the more you listen and act. Now, at the same time, there's going to be times when there's time to stop. So, it's just to what would I say? We really have to feel into that energetically. So yeah, synchronicities will show us, they're part of that creative process, and are just beautiful, beautiful when they happen. I mentioned in another video I think earlier, maybe in the summer, about how a car showed up to teach me about abundance, and really, yeah, some magical moments that continue. So synchronicity is just to be aware that that's again another aspect of the universe co-creating with you. Point four, and a big one, which I have struggled a lot with, is around having no attachment to the outcome. Because, like I said, when I started with the book, I'm feeling these are all the things I need to do. And then I feel which was great, and I did. And there is a divine timing. So I think that's really important to be aware of. I was sort of going ahead and saying, okay, I need to do certain things to promote it. I need to be on certain radio stations. I was getting quite, which is good. It's good to be structured and to plan, but I was getting a little bit tied in. And when things, maybe if I didn't get the responses I wanted, I was getting frustrated and not understanding, just keep following the path of what is exciting me most in this process. And if it isn't the book, maybe it's something else. And as it turned out, it was the book for quite a while, and it has been doing content like this. It's been developing my writing, relationships. Then I was shifted, which has been, I don't know if it's excited, but it felt very right, and very important, and very the next stage for me to look after my mother. And where I am with my mother is a very precious and sacred time as well. And it's teaching me so much and is a real part of my journey. And that I wouldn't change one moment of it. And I can say that today. It's just so important to me. And that is the path of my highest excitement right now. So that's really important. Just know as much as we can is really not attaching too much to a specific outcome, because that outcome may still happen, but there may be a different path to it than the one that we see. And there is always a higher version of us than the one that is sort of the ego-based person, which is fine, is going around doing our thing in the world. But we can sometimes get lost in, it could be a fear or something that is driving us, as opposed to a more higher vision for our life. So that's point number four. As much as we can to stay out of over attaching to the outcome, and to remember that it's a process. It's number five. I used to often, and I can still fall into it, because I sort of find myself, I love the sort of creative, fluid way of living. And then I also, though, there's an aspect of me, because even though I'm Piscean, I love the astrology and understanding it. I also have a lot of planets in Aries, which are very active and going. So I always feel a bit of that pull. So just remembering as well, like I'll go back to the book, and it's like, oh, this has to happen this year. And if it doesn't, it's not a success, or I've failed, or I'm not good enough. And now I've a much better sense of, there's a process with this, and it has brought me in just magical ways. Like even in the last few weeks, I've attended a number of markets, Christmas markets with it. And I've met such amazing people and formed some new relationships that have been so, and I know will continue to be so important in my life, and have taught me so much, and have opened my eyes and my mind. So like that was not something I anticipated, but I followed it because I felt a real excitement of getting out into the community. I've always loved the feeling of markets and crafts. It just lights me up. So here I am talking about it again, and I feel so excited. So that's a part of my life, and wherever that will go in the future, I don't know. So just to know that there's a divine timing, I really believe that, and in all of our lives for everything. So yeah, being a process, that's number five. Hitting blocks. If we're living with sort of older, outdated belief systems or fear-based beliefs, like if I don't do this, like I said, I'm a failure, or how am I going to make a living, or people will think that of me. So it's really important in this process of creating or following our truth or following our path. There is work that we need to do all the time as we go deeper into it and become more powerful in it and become more authentic and alive and, really, really in the flow of it. And one key thing is letting go of these really fear-based beliefs, and ones that don't serve us anymore. I found a lot of old beliefs are leaving me. I know there are still some there, and they come, it's no fault, but it's just to be aware. They come from our conditioning, from how we were educated, from our families, from our ancestors, our culture, society. Not good, that's a whole other topic, but just to be aware, are you acting out of old limiting beliefs about yourself that no longer serve you? And it is a job of work, I believe, and it's ongoing to be sort of always clearing these out of us and out of our system because they hold us back. Are there old pains or blocks of energy? I've recently trained as a Reiki master, and that has had a profound impact on me in clearing emotional blockages. And I'm going to do more work in that in the future. And I've, some more, tools I want to have that have supported me and will support others in clearing these blocks, these old traumas, these pains that cause blocks of energy. So when that happens, we can't hear our intuitive voice as clearly. It can hold us back because we're again in fear. We're afraid, oh, I'll experience that feeling again and I don't want to. It's too overwhelming. And it may be because it's built up over years, or maybe the work that you need to do is to start clearing it and see, and I can say it, I say this with compassion, but also I know with truth that when you do this work and continue to do it, it gets easier. I'd say that today, but definitely it becomes more of a flow, and you start to learn that this is how we're meant to live because we're energetic beings in a physical body. So there's always going to be this flow of experiences moving through us because the experiences are energy. The lighter and the higher the vibration of our energy, the more we are aligning with the truer aspect of ourselves rather than coming from very fear-based. And, the truth is, I've seen it, the more we're acting out of fear, we can see it in the world, the more fear we create, and it just keeps growing. So as difficult as it can be, it's really important to start trying to shift that, because I think that's what's interfering hugely. I know it interfered hugely with my process of moving through life more smoothly and creating. And then we can start to become clear about what is for our highest good and what is it we truly, truly want, not just from a fear-based place, but what do we truly desire for our lives. Number 7 is around visualization. And I think I've talked about it in my book. And as I said, I'm going to write more about this. I'm feeling the calling to write something like a guidebook or a practical book, or some sort of tools around this that are really coming to life for me in my life, and I sort of want to document them and support anyone else who wants to go on this path. But visualization as well is really important. The more I'm doing this, I'm finding that rather than having to sit and go, okay, I want to visualize my life, and nothing wrong with setting goals and plans and vision boards, wonderful, fantastic, so important. But it's really important that it's from a higher perspective. As I said again, not out of a place of fear. So the work that we do on ourselves and making ourselves a very clear channel really can feed into creating a beautiful image of our lives. And it's also important within that. I have been for the last, I'd say since after cancer or during cancer, I had a very powerful image come to me when I was going through a healing session with a chiropractor. It's very sort of general or vague, but it was very beautiful. And it's beginning to flesh out, and I haven't consciously gone looking for it. But as I've sort of moved and followed my intuition, I can see this image really becoming clearer. And what was I going to say there on it? Also, just you can be as specific as you want if you feel that. If you don't, I think the most important thing is that you're in a very clear, what I would say, high vibrational energy. You're feeling into it more than saying, okay, I want a big list of things that I want because I need to have them, or otherwise I won't be okay in the world. Coming from a more, you'll sense the difference. And I always say, if you can feel into it And it's lovely. I often find when I'm not least thinking about it, I could be out walking or I'm doing a meditation or I'm in my yoga class or whatever it is, the image will start coming to me, and even to start fleshing that out and writing it up. But the visualization is important because we have free will. So I wouldn't put pressure on yourselves to be saying, oh my God, I have to have a very specific goal next year. But, you know, wherever you meet it, it might be quite high level. So the visualization is important, but really the breadcrumb trail, as I said, and following your intuition and the vibration and the energy and your excitement is going to lead you to it. So not to get worried around that. So that's point 7. Number 8, discernment. As I mentioned earlier, firstly, are you acting out of fear, or are you acting out of, you know, your intuitive excitement and passion for something? Very, very clearly, if it's fear-based, I would say to you, no, it's stop. Even if it just means you don't do anything for a while. But, you know, if it start, I have noticed there's a few things which I did start when I started to panic and going, oh, the book or the work I'm doing on developing content or writing newsletters or videos and sharing is not flowing as well. I started to panic and maybe force myself to do things that really started getting myself very stuck is the only way, and in more fear and in more anxiety. So I just let it go. And that's the key. And that has been key in how I've been moving to where I am. I could still be in that stuck place. Well, it would be very painful if I was still there, but I don't feel I am. So yeah, what is the voice? Is it fear or is it excitement? And if you're feeling, you know, very unsure, maybe just to sit, as I said, and get back into alignment. And also to be very careful, I'm not saying this in a fearful way, to be very discerning, I suppose, around others around you. And I don't mean this in any way a negative way. There are amazing people who have come into my life to help me on my path. And this is what we do. We collaborate, but also not to give your power away, to know, does this feel right for you? So someone might be sharing something that they have experienced, like me. And, you know, you don't exactly listening to me, you might go, no, I don't get anything of what she's saying. And absolutely, that's great. Don't take it on board. Don't take it on board unless this resonates and feels right for you. I just share my experience in the hope that it will be helpful on your path or to anyone who's listening or watching. So yeah, just to be conscious of that. You know, people consciously or unconsciously sometimes come from their own insecurities. And most people I know around me, you know, want the best for me. But nobody knows you like you do. So it's really important to discern anything that you're hearing and taking in and bring it inside and go, what does this feel like? And use that as your guiding force. So that's point number 8. Point number 9, to trust life and whatever way you tune into that aspect in you. So you'll start to see these gifts come to life. You'll start to feel excited, as I said, your passion, your purpose. And we are here, I say that again in my book as well, you're here to stand out, not to fit in. You really are. And although we have been conditioned to believe we all must nearly be the same for us all to get along, I feel it's not that at all. We are here to stand out. We are very unique, and that is how we come into harmony with each other, and that's how we collaborate. In the other way, if we're all trying to be the same, it becomes a competition, and that is not what life is about. And I think once we start to see that, it becomes much more beautiful. And I'm just going to share a tiny little story connected to how that has really worked out nicely recently for me, which is hence why it sort of came to me to make the video. As I said, I was doing a lot of more focus on my mother. I was finding it very difficult to be present, and that's why I was resisting, and that's why I was saying, oh, I must do my work on my book, and this is holding me back from it. And then when I completed the Reiki Master, which I did a few weeks ago, that had a very profound effect on me. And I sort of felt for me to work with others, I need, as I mentioned earlier, about clearing your blocks. There's more I need to be clearing. There's something sort of, you know, that needs some work. And I just felt intuitively called to visit a healer, someone to work with me to sort of help me. I hadn't done that in a while, to move things through me and I just went with it, very intuitive. I didn't really even know what exactly I was looking for. And I went out and visited this woman out in Connemara just about a week or two ago. And my God, you know, it may have seemed not on my path a while back, but my God, has it sort of shifted me into, not even shifted, it's been the breadcrumb trail to my next steps, to some to the next work I want to do, to some healing that has really sort of started again to go deeper in me, which has allowed me be more present with my mother, which has allowed more creative inspiration to come through, which has allowed next steps start to show themselves. And I'm excited about that. I will talk about it more in the new year. As I said, I want to write something a bit more in depth, fleshing out really this sort of idea of how, we create our reality, and also sort of some more embodied support for people to help clear blocks in doing that. So yeah, I just mentioned it. It might sound a little bit vague, but it's sort of where I feel I'm being called, by following the breadcrumb trail. I hope this video has been helpful for you. I hope me sharing some of my experience and what I'm learning will help you move forward into 2023 and create and collaborate. Maybe we'll collaborate. I've just had some amazing experiences. And to pay attention to everything that happens, every conversation, if it feels right, if it's something, just trust. I found myself having conversations with people and just in the moment knowing, wow, something really important was said to me there that I could have passed over. So trust the energy inside and trust the voice inside. I will finish by mentioning the two books, because I rarely do this, but I'm very excited and proud of the fact that my book, Gifts from the Devastation, the story that I mentioned, my personal story, is now available on Audible. I narrated and recorded the audiobook. And yeah, if you do feel so called, I do hope you enjoy it. There's a lovely practical exercise in that book. And for anyone, whether you read it or you listen, if you listen, there's a lovely, I call it the inside out living indicator. And it sort of ties in with this. It's sort of like benchmarking yourself. And it comes from when I trained as a life coach. I sort of developed my own tool to help people. So that is something that you can tap into or reach out to me if you'd like a copy of it. As well. And the other book that I wrote is The Tapestry of Life. I wrote that first. And again, it ties into what I'm talking about here, I really believe we are all part of this tapestry that is life, and we're all a unique thread in it. And we're going to weave in and out of each other's lives, but we must be truthful. And not even be truthful, well, yes, be truthful, but we must honor our path, because we're going to weave in and out and we can be distracted. So that book is a lovely fictional story of three women and how that happens. They don't know each other, they meet. It's in Galway in Ireland, and how that whole pattern of collaboration and community comes into play in their lives. And that was when I was beginning to learn that. And the importance of it. So thank you very much for listening or watching. And I really wish you a lovely end and start to this year, 2022, and start of 2023 in whatever way you celebrate or mark it or not. And yeah, I look forward to connecting. I think we're heading into, more interesting times. And the key being is, once we honor and follow our heart and our truth and our passion, I think we are always looked after, and that is how we change the world for the better. So take care, and talk to you again soon on the next video.